I watched The Last of Us Season 2 finale after stream tonight, which was pretty late, so I didn't finish watching it till like 3 a.m., and I said, Fiddlesticks, whoo-wee, I need to catch some Z's, I'll go ahead and do the review in the morning. Couldn't sleep, so now it's 5 a.m., and I said, well, might as well do it now. It's never any fun not being able to go to sleep, just like it wasn't any fun watching Last of Us Season 2. Like most people, I liked the first season. I thought they did a great job. Season 2, I was skeptical on them not recasting Ellie and keeping Bella Ramsey as Ellie because it's supposed to take place 5 years into the future, but obviously Bella Ramsey in real life was not going to age that much in, the 2 years it took between seasons. So in the show, Ellie still looks exactly the same, but is supposed to be 5 years older. Also, Ellie still acts exactly the same. So it really conflicts with what the character's supposed to be portrayed as here, because Ellie still looks and acts like a 14-year-old from season 1, even though she's supposed to be 19. So this was a big complaint I had that I already had mentioned earlier with, the episode with Joel's death, where Ellie just doesn't feel like she's changed. She still feels like that same kid from season 1 who's just constantly joking and extremely immature. And unfortunately, that doesn't change throughout season 2 at all. It still feels really out of place. In the game, Ellie has a lot more grit. Ellie is also smart in the game. For some reason, they made the decision for The Last of Us Season 2 to make Ellie dumb, to the point where she even says that she's stupid. Why? That just kind of betrays the character. Yeah, she's supposed to be like reckless and everything, but that doesn't mean that she's some like lobotomite. That change just didn't really make sense to me. Pretty much all of the good traits of Ellie from the game were given to Dina in the show. Dina feels like the actual main character of season 2, whereas Ellie just feels like the quirky sidekick constantly scrambling to make a quip. Now, of course, I've seen a lot of people saying that it's all Bella Ramsey's acting's fault here for the lackluster season. And I don't really agree with that. Did Bella Ramsey knock it out of the park, a fucking grand slam, grand salami performance? No. But I don't think this material would work even if they did recast Ellie for somebody else that could embody, the grit and the intimidation that Ellie had in the game better. Like, I don't think it would change if the material didn't. Because for some reason, Ellie is written to still be like this kid that takes nothing seriously, and all the characters that interact with Ellie in this world interact with her as kind of a babysitter. Best example is Jesse, where Jesse comes and rescues her and Dina, saves the day, and then the rest of that episode and now into this episode, there's no, like, actual friendship between them, and in fact, there really hasn't been on screen at all for the whole season, but it's so egregious here in these last 2 episodes where, like, they're not friendly. Whereas in the game, you get the feeling that they will do anything for each other to, keep each other safe. In the show, Jesse is literally like the babysitter here, just having to sigh and put up with Ellie's attitude and just being like this constant brat. So I don't even think that's Bella Ramsey's fault. That is the fault of the writing around this character. They were totally off the mark with what they tried to do here. It was much, much worse than the video game counterpart. And even if you haven't played the game, I just think most people will get the impression that Ellie is like this really annoying character. There just wasn't a single moment in the season where you get the sense that she is on this unstoppable quest for revenge, an insatiable appetite for vengeance, overcome with the desire to kill the people that killed Joel. It never feels that way, because it just never seems like she cares that much. It feels more almost like a slice of life sometimes, as opposed to like this dark descent into revenge and the effects it has on everyone around them. The character was written to just be constantly joking, which, again, I don't understand why, because in the game, yeah, Ellie, of course, is still kind of zany, but it's every minute of every scene in Season 2. Like, in between perilous, sequences, where they're trying to be quiet or, like, about to fight some infected, in between that, they're joking. In fact, sometimes in the middle of it, like in the very beginning of the season, where they're about to, like, kill a clicker, and they're doing like sign language back and forth, and she does like the miming that she's stabbing her neck and like blood's pouring out. Like, it's always joking, which doesn't work for how serious this is supposed to be. It doesn't feel intense. It takes a lot of that, like, on edge, hold your breath, are they gonna make it out alive, anxiety out of it, because it's constantly broken up with Ellie making a joke or something, or it just not being taken seriously for some reason. And I think that's the biggest detriment to the season. That and a lot of the changes they made just don't work. I actually thought some of the changes they made to the episode surrounding Joel's death were positive. As I mentioned, I think that entire sequence with the Jackson fight was great. I think that was a really good idea. I won't just regurgitate my take on that episode, but the point is, I think that was a good change, and then the majority of the changes they made going forward were huge misses and big question marks. I don't really get it. Like, the best example comes from the finale, I think, where Ellie, when pursuing Abby, she washes up on the shore and gets taken by the scars, and she's about to be gutted like a fish. And then she's not, because it gets broken up, the village is under attack, they let her go, and then she gets out of there and then goes back to get Ellie. That wasn't in the game, and it added nothing. It felt so out of the blue, just completely random. Why even have that there? That doesn't really compute in my noodle up here. Maybe it'll be something they explore in season 3, perhaps, but as of right now, that just felt entirely out of left field and served no real purpose. Unless what they tried to get across to viewers is just how deep the indoctrination goes with the cult, because it was a little kid who kind of, passed judgment saying that she needs to be killed. The kid, gave the sign to, split her open, so maybe that's what it wanted to get across. But I don't think you needed this whole sequence here that leads to nothing. That was already kind of established earlier in the season anyway. But whatever. Point is, there was a lot of changes here that I don't think added anything. And in fact, some of them I think just take away. But I'm not speaking in absolutes. I'm not a Sith. There are a couple changes I like. As mentioned, the Jackson sequence. I thought that was a great battle. And still, the best part of Season 2, I would say, was everything that happened at Jackson with that huge fight with the infected horde. But there's another change that they introduced in the finale that I thought was really smart. It's while Ellie and Jesse take refuge for a moment, hold up, and Ellie grabs a book. And that book is actually one that's near and dear to my heart. It's the monster at the end of this book, the Sesame Street book, Grover. That book is all about Grover trying to stop you from getting to the end of the book because of the monster that lies at the very end. It's horrifying, so he's, frantically trying to get you to stop. No, don't go to the end of the book. But then when you get to the end of the book, turns out the monster is Grover the whole time. I actually think that's, at least the way I read it, I think that is a very clever thing to slide in here, knowing the game. Obviously, what it's talking about is how on this path for revenge, Ellie is the monster at the end of the book and what she became. And I think that works pretty well for the game, not the show. Because the show Ellie is just not the same character from the game. Not even close, really. So I don't think it hits as hard in the show, but I think that it was a very clever nod to the game counterpart. And I just wanted to mention that because I thought that was pretty cool. There was also, I also like what they did with Isaac. I thought Isaac was pretty solid. For the brief glimpses you get of him in this show, I actually thought Isaac was very cool. So there are a couple of things that I liked. But overall, I think Season 2 is just a miss. And the biggest reason for that is because of how Ellie was written here. They, at no point, have Ellie even remotely come close to the rage that's demonstrated in the character in the game. And for the vast majority of this season, Ellie's just jubilant, full of joy, constantly happy and joking, even when the situations make no sense for that to be the emotion that Ellie has in those moments. It doesn't work. It's just she never feels angry or full of rage or anything like that, like on a destructive warpath. It never comes across, and it doesn't help that the character feels really inconsistent. It felt like they were afraid to commit to just the angry, revenge-obsessed Ellie from the game. Like, in this finale alone, there is a scene that I'm pretty sure, almost 100% sure, wasn't in the game. Granted, it's been a while since I played it, where Ellie and Jesse take cover inside a garage because wolves were shooting at a Scar who was running away from them. They catch up. They then take the Scar's clothes off, drag him away, presumably to execute him. Ellie tries to go save him, and Jesse stops her. And she gets very upset about that because she wanted to save him, and that really conflicts with the selfish Ellie that they're trying to get across, and also the Ellie from the game who absolutely would not care about that and is just so consumed with revenge, she wouldn't do that or get mad about not being able to save this Scar she didn't know. And then 2 scenes later in this finale, it's when Jesse and Ellie are looking over the city. Ellie sees the Ferris wheel, connects the dots that Abby's going to be at the aquarium under the Ferris wheel, and Jesse is trying to convince her to save Tommy because they hear the gunshots. Jesse reminds her Tommy is fighting wolves. He's pinning them down, but they called for backup. Ellie then says then he'll pin down the backup, and she ultimately chooses to go after Abby and abandons Tommy and Jesse for her quest for revenge. That happened in the game, and that was once again to solidify just how consumed she was on this quest for vengeance. But in the show, it kind of flip-flops on Ellie. Sometimes she wants to be like the good guy, helping everybody, even strangers she doesn't know, being the savior over there. And then 2 scenes later, nope, she's going to be that rage-filled revenge machine. Like, it just felt like they couldn't really commit to that Ellie from the game, and instead, they just had her be pretty inconsistent across the whole season. Also, when she's going through the aquarium with the flashlight on, that shit was kind of painful. She is behind enemy lines. She's already just gone through that island sequence. Now she's in the aquarium, yet she still has her flashlight fully blasting here, knowing full well everyone there will just try and kill her if they're alerted to her presence. And yet she's like basically throwing up a flare to where she is at all times. She's basically got the UAV out on herself by just having the flashlight going. But luckily, of course, they were in the back so they didn't see it. That was just a little silly, something I wanted to mention. Another thing I want to mention, though, is after Tommy and Jesse come and they get Ellie and they go back to the safe spot, there's a conversation that gets had, and I don't remember if it plays out this way in the game, but in the show, it felt really bad. It's when Ellie asked, why'd you come back? Jesse said, maybe Tommy forced me to. Ellie said something to the effect of, is that true? And Jesse said, nope. And then he says, I just thought, if I was ever in trouble, life on the line, I knew I could count on you to light a fire, burn it all down, do everything possible, move mountains, basically, to come save me. He basically says that if he was in trouble, he knows Ellie would do everything to save him. And I just thought to myself how fucking stupid that sounds after what we just watched, where Ellie, literally less than 20 minutes ago, just openly forsakes Jesse and Tommy. Tommy, who is in immediate danger, fighting against wolves in like this huge firefight. Ellie abandons both of them in order to go find Abby. So I don't know why Jesse thinks that she would do anything to save him, because there's a good chance if Ellie smelt a fart that she believed would somehow lead her closer to Abby, she would follow that like a cartoon character smelling a nice pie and forget all about Jesse entirely. So just that line, that conversation doesn't really hit when we've already watched Ellie go completely against that and abandon the people she cares about for revenge, which I do think is much more in line with the video game character for what it's worth. But since the show is very inconsistent about being that angry, rage, revenge-focused character that we know from the game, it doesn't fit. Like, it no longer works, and it feels very out of place. Anyway, though, I'll stop yapping about this show. There were moments I thought were pretty decent, but they were few and far between, unfortunately. I think it was a huge step down. I also think the season had some big pacing issues that I haven't even begun to touch on. It really wasn't great. Oh, I did want to mention, though, I actually thought Abby was pretty solid in the show. Like, I don't have any major complaints there. And even though we didn't get to see a lot of Abby's side of things whenever it would pop up actually was solid. Like, I don't know if that's maybe just because everything on the Ellie side was handled so poorly that Abby's side, by contrast, looks a lot better. I don't really know, but I really did think Abby was pretty solid in the season. And I know season 3 is obviously going to be focusing on Abby's side entirely, so maybe that ends up being a bit better than this season, because season 2 of Last of Us show, not amazing. That's really about it. See ya.